Welcome to Expat Hoops, where we talk to basketball players who have played professionally overseas. Maurice Creek joins us today, whose career has taken him around Europe after a career at Indiana and GW. Tony is on vacation this week, but he wanted to remind you to be interactive with us at Expat Hoops as we continue to grow the pod. Follow and interact with us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and comment on the videos below. Now, if you'll join me in welcoming Mo to Expat Hoops. Welcome, Mo.
Thank you. How you doing?
Good. We actually had some feedback from the GW boards, actually sort of a listener question, if you will. So we will go back a little bit before even your college career and overseas career. You're a local guy, Maryland guy, recruitment at Indiana originally. You were highly rated recruit from this area, probably could have gone to any school in the country. Why then rebuilding program like Indiana? Did you consider Maryland or Georgetown while you were in high school?
Maryland was my favorite school, to be honest, and they gave the scholarship away that I was supposed to have to a guy. His name was Sean Mosley, and he was a year before me, and that kind of derailed my chances of like being at a school in this area because I like Georgetown, but I was more fond of Maryland at the time, and that's where I really wanted to go. But going into like Indiana, it was just more so of it's a basketball state. You talk about the colleges that's in Indiana, Purdue, Indiana State, Notre Dame, like all these schools are there, and they really care about basketball a lot. The history at Indiana University was everything that I was looking for into a school. I knew that it was a rebuilding year for us, but as time goes on, that we'll pick up and be at the stage that we need to be at, and that's exactly what happened. And unfortunately, I didn't feel like I was a part of that because of the injuries and stuff like that. But before that, I definitely appreciated my time.
Yeah, and actually, that was a second part of the listener question. Was actually kind of talking about your experience at IU and the injuries. Several significant injuries that you overcame. I know that, going back on the research that I saw quotes from Coach Crean that said that, basically you gave everything that you had. And, it's a great story that you're always fighting through it. But the question from the GW commenter was essentially your recruitment to GW after all the injuries and setbacks in Indiana. If you could kind of talk a little bit about that, what was that like?
Yeah, it was great. They welcomed me with open arms, and because they're at the house, close to my house, it was just even better. It was a couple of colleges that were looking at me, Texas, Marshall, and it was George Washington, and I really liked Texas a lot. I didn't even I went on a visit. No, I didn't go on a visit. I didn't go on a visit to Texas, but I did go on the visit to GW. When I was in the city, and what they told me was that I was what they were missing. So when a coach tells you that and has all this belief and faith in you, that draws you in as a basketball player. And for me to be at the house, for my family to see, that made it even more predominant that I wanted to go to the school. And just the players and the coaching staff alone just made me feel like I was a family member to that university. And everybody loved me there. I loved everybody else there. We was a big family, and that's what you want when you go into a college.
Here's an interesting question for you, or at least I think it's an interesting question. So what you kind of hear from time to time, recruits being told you're the missing piece. And in that regard, you had been through recruiting once before to get to Indiana. So you had the experience of going through it. Was it something that they kind of told you exactly that not only are you the missing piece, but was it something that they actually sat down with you and said, this is how we're looking to utilize you? Or was it just something general that you're the missing piece?
They had everything that they needed. They needed one more piece to the puzzle, and that was a score that at will score, and that's where I came into play. And that's what Coach Lonigan told me. He was like, we recruited you because we knew that you could score the basketball, and this would be a perfect opportunity. We didn't care about the injuries that you had went through, we know you can still play the game, and we believe in you, and that's what you want to hear. That somebody believes in you as a basketball player when they're recruiting you as you being one of their guys. So after hearing all that, it was just me playing with the guys that getting a feel for them and how they play. We had a great point guard in Joe McDonald. We had two very athletic wings and Patricio Guarino and Keithan Savage. We had two dogs as big men with Kevin Larson and Isaiah Armwood, and that was basically the core to our team, and that's why we were winning, because they had everything else but a lockdown shooter and a scorer that's a knockdown shooter, and that's where I came into play. And no, I'm happy that I went there.
So this actually is a really good segue. Another aspect of this listener's question, wanted to get you to talk about the shot you hit with less than a second left to beat Maryland at the BB&T Classic. Right there, that gives you your opportunity to talk about not only your ability as a scorer, but what that experience was like for you and the team.
Oh, it was great. I always felt like it was personal. When I was at Indiana University my freshman year, we played them, and we lost. And I knew we didn't have enough to beat them. That's when they had Grievous Vasquez and Eric Hayes as their backcourt. I mean, and when I lost that game, I felt hurt because I knew how bad I wanted to go there, and I knew the person that took the scholarship from me at that period of time, he was on that team. So for me to have a great game, but to lose to them, that hurt. So the night before we played Maryland, I was in the gym working out all day on the shot that I hit against Maryland. The same move, the exact same scenario. I was filling it out like it was the exact same scenario. It just happened to come to life. And so when it happened like that, I was, came to coach, and he was drawing up the play for Joe. And I was like, Coach, if you give me the ball right here, I'm going to end it. We're not going to go in overtime in the game right here. I already knew what move I was going to do, how I was going to do it, how it was going to play out. So if I missed it, at least I did it the way that I already was prepared to do it. And I just happened to hit the shot. And like I said, it was always a personal thing between me and Maryland because of the situation. And I'm just happy that it just happened to happen right there at our home base, and right by the crib.
That's great. That was actually even better response than I was even hoping to get. So that's a really interesting insight. We could continue to talk about college quite a bit, but part of the reason why we do this pod is to kind of bridge the gap from what your college career was to what you've been up to the last, several years now. So actually kind of echoing the earlier question, you're a highly rated recruit. I'm sure that going pro was always something that, was a goal of yours. The question I think that we kind of struggle with a little bit, it's a little bit different. At what point in your college career did you actually start thinking to yourself, okay, this is the path I want to go down in terms of pro, and what might be available to me, like whether that's, getting an agent, looking into opportunities, either flirting with the NBA or looking to go overseas. What did that look like for you when you actually really started to get serious from bridging the gap from I've always wanted to go pro to, all right, I actually have to do this?
Yeah, it was a big gap. I didn't know where I was going to stand or lane, honestly. I always felt like I was an NBA player. I still do to this day, just watching the games, stuff like that. I know I can go out there and play with those guys. But the NBA game is very political. It's very much so of like they have to be willing to give you a shot. And when you get that shot, you gotta be willing to put everything on the line to take that shot. I just never got the opportunity to really get pushed off to say, oh, we're gonna actually go ahead and give you a shot at being on this team, and me either having to lose it on my own or make it on my own. I have never got that shot. So I've always been an overseas basketball player. And, over the years that I've played overseas, I've done damage. Everywhere I've been at, I've done damage. Even on the teams that I was, had losing records on, nobody can honestly say that I didn't do my part when it came to me being on the team. So just never got the shot to the ultimate level. And injuries is a part of it. Everybody wants somebody that's young and healthy. That's just the nature of the game when it comes to the NBA. But the teams that took me when I was overseas, they know who I am and how I am and what I bring to a team. And saying for the next team that picks me up, I'm gonna do the same exact thing. I'm gonna be the same exact person and bring that winning spirit to a team that teams need to get above everybody else.
So at what point in your college career did you actually start looking at whether it was exploring the avenue for the NBA or just saying, okay, overseas is going to be the path that I take, maybe with the idea that still I'm going to leave my options open for the NBA, but what did that look like for you? Was there anybody either on the staff at GW or anything like that that said, hey, I know some agents you should talk to X, Y, or Z?
No, not really. GW was just more so about GW. They didn't really go into that agency field or whatever. I had to really feel that out on my own, and it was crazy because I met he's not my business partner now, my business manager, but at the time he was my business manager. So I met him. Vic was having an event, and I ended up meeting up with one of the guys. He used to cut hair around the Maryland area, and he set me up with this business guy, talking to me about my past and my future and stuff like that. And he set me up with this agent for my first year overseas. The agent had already had a lot of NBA guys, and basically what they were telling me was it's going to be very hard for me to get in there just because of all the injuries that I had and stuff like that. And I really wasn't fond of hearing that, but looking at the facts of it all, it was possibly true because nobody has actually said, you know what, we got to give him a shot. You know what I'm saying? So at least he was real with me to tell me how it is as far as, going overseas or playing in the NBA and stuff like that. And like I said, I always believed in myself, but the fact of the matter is that a lot of people were just looking for who the healthy ones are and who can, play at that level is what they think. You know what I mean? So I ended up going the overseas route. I'm not knocking it. I'm not mad about it at all. But it was just a life that I chose. I think I found out I was a overseas player, was going to be an overseas player when I didn't get invited to the Portsmouth Invitational for seniors, and I was very upset about that because I knew that I was supposed to be one of those guys that was supposed to be invited to that, and all the NBA scouts was there. So now you miss that shot, and you already not thinking to yourself like they are already probably knocking me because of my injuries and stuff like that. It just puts you in that boat to be an overseas basketball player.
Yeah, that's actually kind of an interesting point. Not only would injuries be something, at least from the outside looking in, and I could easily be wrong, but one of the things that when you look at, the NBA draft, a lot of times, whether you're a third or fourth year player, whether you have injuries or not, there's not very many of those players selected. It always seems to be like they draft on more potential of what they think somebody could be, not necessarily where your ability is at. So like in any given year on any given roster in the NBA, first of all, it may not necessarily be the most talented person. There could be people playing overseas that have made the choice, look, I'd rather have the guaranteed contract for the year. I know I'm going to get paid this amount as opposed to I don't want to be like one of the last people on the roster and I don't have to worry about are they going to cut me or not. So it's kind of an interesting choice that I think it's a misconception sometimes where people that either go overseas, it's not necessarily that they couldn't handle themselves in the NBA. It's just that there are certain spots that I think that the NBA kind of looks at as sort of like developmental or potential
Right.
roster spots. So that's an interesting conversation in and of itself. But you have an interesting career path as well that I really want to get into. We talked about this a couple days ago a little bit, but your first job was a little bit interesting. I think it's the first time we've ever had anybody that has had the team go bankrupt on them in the middle of the year. And on top of that, it's your first experience playing overseas. Take us through what that experience was like.
Yeah, it was crazy. Um, the reason why I say it was crazy, the right before the team announced that they were going to go bankrupt, we had just beat the number one team in the league, and we were 10-2 or 10-3 or something like that. We had a core. It was three rookies on that team, and all three of us were Americans. Well, we were all three of us was the top three scorers in that league. So I was averaging like 19 at the time. My boy Cole Dickerson was averaging like 20, and I think Brandon was averaging like 16 or 17. And it was the 1, 2, and 4. And we were playing so well, but we always felt like something was wrong. And I just never really wanted to get into it because of the fact, like, I was just like, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to worry about the business part of it unless I'm not getting paid. Um, I just want to play basketball, do what I need to do, and go about it that way. But when we started playing the games and months and stuff started going by and we weren't getting paid, now people was having concerns. So, they try to do like little events here and there to try to raise money too, so that everybody could get paid on time and stuff like that. And they just could not do it. So after that game or whatever, we were so excited and whatnot. But the next day we were supposed to have practice and we just wasn't having practices. And we had a meeting up in the Oval Office, and they was talking about they were going to have the team go bankrupt, and everybody was mad. So now a lot of the guys, they can just go to another team. They were from Amsterdam, they were from the Netherlands, so they can just go ahead ship over to another team, right? Brandon had already called his agent. He had got him another gig, so he left. Cole did the same thing. He got his stuff and packed up and left. I was stuck there because I was sitting there worrying about what next job was I going to get and stuff like that. My uncle Timothy Hinton, he's a famous painter. He lived in Amsterdam. I was legitly going to my uncle's house and staying with him sometimes, and would go back to my apartment just to get out of that area and stuff like that. So I think like maybe a couple of weeks had went by. Another team, the top team, we had just beat them, called ZZ Lighting. We had just beat them. They hit me up and was like, hey, you know what I'm saying, we want to put you on our team. And so I had went over there with them. And we had an okay year. We, you know what I'm saying, we had lost to the Euro FIBA Cup team now, Groningen. We had lost to them in the playoffs. But we had a okay year that year. I mean, for me, it was just a rebuild and trying to rebuild and get myself together type of year. But it was very interesting.
Yeah, that's your first year overseas, and that's really lucky because I didn't realize that there was the family connection there. I know it was a situation where you joined on with another team like within the league, but it took a little bit of time to get there, between the bankruptcy and actually being able to sign with that team. So that actually is really fortunate. And it also probably is something, it might explain why you didn't necessarily go back home, because, you're looking to get another job and you want to be over there as quick as possible as an overseas player because they want to know that you're available like now.
Now, yep.
Yep. So interesting first year. Other than what was going on the court, was it something that you were able to get to see the country a little bit while you were there? I mean, I know that having a job situation is a little bit uncertain like that, so you may not necessarily get to travel if you're not being paid. But what was your life like adjusting in that first season outside of what was going on with the bankruptcy and switching teams?
Yeah, I had a blast in Amsterdam. I loved it there. Honestly, it was great. You know, just the people were very welcoming, and you always had stuff to do out there, and it was one of my more favorite countries to visit, honestly. And my like I said, my uncle was there at the time, and he showed me around to a lot of spots in Den Haag, and it was just great. It was a great culture.
So here's a question: had you really traveled outside the country before your first season abroad?
No, I've never. I'm no, I'm lying on that. I had went to Puerto Rico with Indiana University, but I didn't get to travel like for say like trying to sightsee and stuff like that. It was about business. But now when you don't you had a time on your hands and you're in Amsterdam, now you have time to actually travel and kind of see what saying, what goes on in the area and stuff like that and get accustomed to the area. So that was actually my first time actually being able to sightsee and all that other type of stuff in that area.
Yeah, and even with Puerto Rico, that's kind of like traveling abroad light, where it's still technically a U.S. territory, even if they might be speaking Spanish a lot more often.
Mhm.
Kind of has some sort of overseas flair to it, or out of country flair to it, but it's still technically ultimately in America. Whereas like that, yeah, that really kind of does put you your first experience, and you had to deal with all that in your first season
Yep.
too. So certainly
Yep.
made you a little bit stronger in the overseas journey. Second job, finishing out, or second season rather, you go from the Netherlands to Denmark. Take us through what that second season was like for you and getting to play in Denmark.
It was great. I like Copenhagen. That's another one of them cities where, it's a lot of things to do, and it was great. And what also made me sane in Denmark was I got to meet one of the girls that was on the girls team. She was from our area. She played at Eleanor Roosevelt, and she was a beast. So I would always go watch her games, stuff like that. We became best friends. One like that's like my road dog. Like she's actually the assistant coach for Dayton's women's team now. And her name is Olivia Applewhite, and she would tell you like even the times that it was nothing to do, like we would just end up just doing something, going somewhere and just talking and chatting up. And what I'm saying, we kept each other uh like sane, and what I'm saying, try to keep each other humble and keep each other motivated to winning for our teams and stuff like that, because it was tough for both of us. Like both of our teams were just young, and so we were both losing, and we were overly frustrated because a lot of the pressure was on us. So when we were losing, like for on both sides, they were looking at us like, why are we losing? Like, and she was averaging like 25 and 13. And at that time I was averaging like 23. And we were doing everything that we could. We just could not get no wins off. So Denmark is special to me because you never know who you're gonna meet on the opposite side, where they could become one of the good friends of yours. And it was good basketball. They had great teams in that league. Just for them, they had just more talent than what we had.
And that kind of speaks to something that we've dealt with on this podcast before. The role of the importer, the American, is that you are expected to carry a large weight. I mean, it's something that when you go from GW, where they're asking you to be a scorer, but there's certainly talent around you, versus
Yeah.
sometimes you go to some of these leagues and you're asked to do a lot, like on
Yeah.
your own. And like you said, wins or losses are ultimately kind of up to you, even though you're putting up the points that are basically holding up your end of the deal.
Right. Right.
So after your year in Denmark, you do have a little bit of flirtation with the G League, but ultimately then you wind up in Germany. Usually high level basketball there as well, probably the highest level actually to this point in your career. Take us through what that year was like in Germany.
Germany was, I want to say weird to me. Reason why, because I got to that team so late that the success that I had, I knew it was just off of the fact that I knew how to play basketball. I it was it was to a point where they were winning and losing. We actually lost a lot, but we were so connected as a unit that we just was fighting hard. We just didn't have the talent enough to beat teams that other teams had. You know what I mean? So again, I just did my part with that team, and I'm another thing. I mean, I met one of my TBT teammates, Eric Thompson. That was the first time I met ET, and we've grown up to be brothers ever since. So it's again another special moment for me because he's my brother, and if I didn't play in Germany, I would not have met him. And he's doing great for himself right now, and I'm so happy for him.
It's interesting because the club that you played for was in Essen, and it's not one of the traditional powers, but at the same time, you're in one of the top leagues in the world, really. Take us through a little bit of what you're kind of one of the things we've heard from Germany is that it's a very physical league. Was that, although you were only there for 15 games, was that your experience as well?
Yeah, it was a very physical league. I can say that. It's very tough. You got to be mentally tough to play in that league. There's a lot of great teams with a lot of great talent, and when you're in a league like that, you definitely want to show up because that league can help you along the way of anything. Honestly, you want to get another job, or saying somebody see you. Saying your people were famous for in Germany for being a big time player in that league. So it's just when you out there, you really want to be able to show out.
Definitely. So you finished that year in Germany, spend the 2017-2018 season with a Finnish squad, Cobra. What was your season like in Finland? How did you adapt to the cold of Finland?
Yeah, Finland was very cold, and again, another special moment for me. I think all where I've been is special, but this might be the most special one to me just because of the fact that that's where I actually found Jermaine Marshall. And Jermaine was playing with Remy on a Finnish team, and we've had to play them. He was playing for the Helsinki Seagulls,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason why I was with Sideline Cancer to this day is because of Jermaine, and they brought me along the way right after the season was over. He told me he wanted me to play with him in the TBT our last game against each other. So my team, I knew my team wasn't making the playoffs. We were very close, but we didn't make it. Their team was making it. We had that conversation while they were in playoffs, and it was great. Like I said, I did my thing there. I appreciated the crowd, the fans. The fans were so loving. Even though we were losing, they were just so passionate about the game and so patient with us. And they knew we had a young core, and they knew that we were trying so hard. And yeah, they would. I appreciated them fans to death. But just to play against Remy and Jermaine there, it was great. And um, rest in peace to Jermaine now, because he's gone now from us. But I appreciate him every day for that opportunity because without that opportunity, I don't think a lot of people would have known who I really was.
And we'll certainly get into talking more about your TBT experience. But one of the things I thought was interesting, you commented exactly about what the Finland, what the Finnish fans are like. What is it that's kind of different about them, and how they would bear with the young team and everything? Like, what was it like that you kind of got that vibe that they're very understanding, that they're very supportive? Like, how did that actually manifest? Like, in terms of, was it fan player interaction? Was it the way that they cheered and that they'd show up? What is it sort of that makes them different, or maybe similar to American fans in that regard?
We were losing, so even though we were losing, we were keeping it close with teams that had way more talent than what we had. And we talking about Euro Cup teams. We're talking about just teams that we just knew we weren't even supposed to be in the games with. And if we kept it close, they appreciated that. They appreciate the fight more than they were like, okay, if you didn't win the game, as long as you fought to win that game, we're cool with that. And that you don't get that everywhere you go. You barely get that in the NBA. If your team is losing the NBA, you're losing ticket sales. You're losing money.
Mm.
Well, when we were playing, our gym was packed out and we were losing. I was like, it ain't gonna be nobody in here today. And then you run out for warm-ups and like, oh man, everybody's in here today. It's like, okay. So they were just more passionate about the fight more than the win in my eyes.
Interesting. So sort of one of those experiences where you're accustomed more to like, don't they know the standings? And they're like, yeah, we know the standings. It's just we appreciate sort of what you
Right.
do, and basically we could still see that you guys care.
Right.
That's really interesting. Between Finland and Israel, you spent time in Ukraine, in Kiev. That season, take us through what that season was like before you get to Israel.
It was great. I love Kyiv. And that's like home to me. The only thing that I say that I didn't fulfill was winning the championship that year. And we lost 3-0 to a great team. They just found ways to win when we couldn't. But we came in second place in the Super League. I couldn't. It was a great year for me, and I was I think I was leaving the leading scorer on that team, and made a name and statement for myself. So that was a great year for me. I enjoyed that a lot.
So on the court success for sure, but well, to a point, obviously in the end, but at the same time, you can't win them all.
Right.
But you're saying it's like a second home to you. Why was that such a great stop for you? I'm asking the question essentially as a lawyer. I might know the answer of how good of a city that is,
It
but
is a
in
great
your
city.
words, what makes it such a great city to play in or visit?
It's just, it makes you feel like you're in the States. Honestly, Kyiv looked like New York to me from where I was at. When you go downtown Kyiv, it looks like you're in New York. And so I've found one of my favorite spots to eat at. I found one of my favorite spots to just walk to. Just, what I'm saying, just the build. It was just a great feel of a city that a lot of people that played there that I know, even one of my good friends, he's in Turkey right now. His name is Bruce Massey. He was in Kyiv last year, and he's from my area. He's from Georgetown, but he played in Kyiv last year, and I mean, he didn't have a great season at Kyiv because they had a coaching change. But at the same time, he always said, "Man, the city is just love. I wish all the cities can be like this."
Get to go to Israel next. That's widely not only a good basketball league, but also widely kind of almost everybody has good experiences in Israel. Take us through what your experience was like playing in Israel.
It was tough for me.
So of course the way I set
was
that up is kind of funny, saying just about everybody has a good experience. I shouldn't have set it up that way.
it was tough for me. It was like I appreciate it, but then I didn't really fulfill like how I wanted to fulfill in Israel. See, and when you're in the second league of Israel, they expect you to do every single thing, and especially if that team is losing. So we started off 0-3. It wasn't like I was having bad games. We just wasn't winning. So before the fourth game, I could honestly feel like I'm about to get cut. And the fourth game, we had practice, and I had going off a ball screen, and I got hip checked, and I had caught a hip pointer. We had the game the next day, so I'm sitting there icing, putting icy hot on my body, all of that, trying to get this thing out, stretching, massaging it, everything. So the next day, we had the game. I end up playing. Uh, we end up playing the game or whatever. We end up winning our first game against a good team. So it was crazy, and I ended up having 22 points that game on a hip pointer. Now, like, so it was very crazy. I wasn't supposed to play, played anyway. Had 22 points and a win that game, right? So, me and my teammate, we went out, what I'm saying, got something to eat and everything, and I get a call from my agent, and I'm like, why is he calling me this late? And he called me, so I picked it up, and I was like, what's going on? And it was like he was asking me like how am I doing and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing good. Very excited to talk to him. Like, yeah, we just got our first win. I'm excited. I'm happy. I feel like we did. It was a tough team and everything like that. And he was like, yeah, they're deciding to cut you. I'm like, what? And so he was like, yeah, they just felt like they need more out of a player that do to do everything, and you weren't fulfilling that. And at that time, I was like, well, not only am I averaging the most points on that team, I'm averaging the most assists on that team. So where is the issue? And I was just like, at that point, I was just like, you know what? All right, like, there's nothing I can really do. Like, they made a decision. Um, and then when I had to talk with the coach, like the coach called me and kind of asked me how I felt about it. And I'm like, how do you want me to feel? Like, I'm averaging the most points on your team and the most assists on your team. The only reason I'm not averaging the most rebounds is because my big man is getting 20 and 10 every game he plays. You know what I'm saying? So how am I supposed to get the most rebounds on the team if he's snagging them all? So to get down like that, I mean, I couldn't do nothing else after that. I was just like, you know what, forget it. Like, I wish the best for y'all. And what I'm saying, I was just gonna move forward from that. But it definitely gave me that NBA feel. Like, if you're not doing what they think you can be consistent of doing, then they're gonna cut you. It don't matter if you feel like you're doing it or not.
Interesting. Sort of one of those experiences. Like, I hope you guys find what you're looking for, because I don't know what it is you're looking for. Interestingly enough, though, after your Israel experience, you go back to the Ukraine, but with a different club. What made it different the second time around, if at all, from the first time around? Or was it something that you were just like, you know what, I know what to expect, even if it's a different town or city? But was it, take us through the second experience in the Ukraine?
I liked Prometey, even though it definitely wasn't the same city as Kiev. Kiev is the best city. Prometey was okay, but it made me more focused on basketball um, and winning games than anything. And that I love that team. We were supposed to win the whole thing, and that's when COVID had just struck. So it downplayed the whole season because we were in third place at the time, but they shut the whole season down when COVID had started coming about. And um I was mad about that because we had just beat Dnipro, who was the number one team in the league. So uh I've already felt that before. I was already mad. I was mad about that situation because we had already put all the work in. We were coming together as a team. We had all the pieces to the puzzle to win it, and we couldn't even finish the season though because of COVID.
And so, what was your COVID experience like? I know that certain players that we've talked to have said, they started hearing things about, oh, there's something coming out of China. And what was your experience like, not only in terms of hearing about it, but also in terms of, okay, once they actually did shut down the leagues and everything, what was your experience like? Was it actually fairly easy to get home? Some people we've talked to had some real difficulties. There's really a question whether they're actually going to get home. What was your experience with COVID like?
It was easy for me to get home. They just didn't know if they were going to continue the league or not continue the league, so it took longer than expected. But of course, you hear a lot of things about COVID, where it came from, or this and that. But what was definite for me is when they shut down the NBA season, I was like, our season is done for, because
Mhm.
that's what they're making the most money. So they're not going to allow the NBA not to play, and then and then allow us to play, and we ain't making nowhere near as much money as them. So when that happened, I was like, yeah, let me go ahead and start packing my bags and get myself together and go ahead and get on this flight and go home and just get on to the next season from there.
Well, it's good to hear that it, all things considered, that it was a pretty easy experience for you to get home. The next season, you get to go to Romania for the first time. That's actually the last season that you've played. It was the last season that recurred, because we're actually just getting underway with some of the seasons now abroad.
Yep.
Get to be in Bucharest, Romania. Take us through this last season for you.
It was a good, wild season for me, I would say. It was I love Bucharest, Romania. It's the capital. It's You can always find something to do in Romania. The people are cool. Um, I had no problems in Romania at all. Uh, the crazy thing about Romania when I was there was, we had the coaching change in the beginning. I mean, in the right in the middle of the season, and we could just never. It was like one of them things we could not win games. It was one of them things where we had the pieces, but then pieces started dropping because they started getting hurt. We had Jake O'Brien. I forgot what he did, but I think he had tore his meniscus or something.
Oof.
Uh, then we had Ivan. Um, he had a broken finger and two broken fingers, and he had did something with his neck and went back to Croatia. So now it was just really the American part of it was just me and my point guard, Kenny Brown. And we did everything we could possibly do to win games for this team. And we just could not win because they just had way more talent than us. And we were a young group of kids, like we were a young core. And so and it's crazy because um now he's looking for a job as well. So it's like um it was just wild. But at the same time, I had him as a brother there, and we made the best of what we can do as possible. And then they're on the way with their season, and they actually picked up two guys from the league that we played against. So it was I'm happy to see that they doing okay for themselves, and I want to see how far they get to.
So you brought up something interesting, again, that we kind of talked a little bit about the pod. What's next for you? Currently, seasons are starting to get underway in some places. You're still a free agent. Take us through what the process has been like. I know that we talked off the pod that you had one offer that you turned down. What's the process been like for you so far this year, and sort of what would be your ideal landing spot, whether it's by country or by fit?
It's very frustrating. Honestly, a lot of people have been asking me to the day, why are you still here? Why are you not signed? What's going on? Like, and my thing is I can honestly tell them I don't know, because everywhere I've went, um, I've produced to the best of my ability, and then you kind of see the people that are signed and everything like that, and you want to do what's best for your family, and you're just sitting over here having to be patient until somebody actually uh takes you on as an accountability for their team. And um but I just been working out, just been grinding, spending time with my family the best as I can, and um just trying to stay ready at all costs, because I would hope at some point in time it will be coming. I'm hoping soon, but I can't sit here and lie and say that I'm happy about the circumstances, because I feel like I'm missing out. When you play basketball overseas for so long, you're just accustomed to doing that. Like you're just accustomed to having a couple of months here to be with your family and go head out. But now it's like months and months and months is going by. Like the preseason starts in August. Well, we're in October. You know what I mean? So it's like now the seasons are starting to add up, and the months and days are starting to add up. And this is probably one of the wildest years for me so far. But when I will say when I do get that opportunity, I'll definitely utilize it to the best of my ability.
And it actually probably does help you a little bit to some degree that you have come in middle of the year or a little bit later on, so you can at least say that I've done it before, in addition to last season that you were producing at a high level in a good league as well.
Sure.